If you're just tuning into us, this is the All About Real Estate Show on 99.1 CKXS. Pete Allaer joins us from Riverside Realty. So our first question on the text line. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
How much is farmland going for out in the Sombra-Wilkesport area? What do you know about that area?
Well, I would say there are some variables there, but I would say that a range would probably be, we'll throw a dart at $10,000 an acre, and I think we can wave back and forth a little lower or possibly slightly higher. In that area, it'll depend as well on some of those farms have gas leases, and there's you get a guaranteed X amount per year on that, so that's worth some value. If it's a square 100 acres, let's say, that's well tiled, that would sort of be on the upper end. If let's say it's a smaller piece, with a ditch running through it, that might be a little less, because really if we're going to sell it to farmers, most farmers will want, a 100-acre piece or maybe a 50.
Right.
They're not so much interested in a little 25-acre. Now, if you're the other buyers, let's say you're someone from town, and
you want a hobby farm,
then the 25 works better for them. But I'd say if you said 10,000 an acre, but per workable acre, because that's the other thing, is it 100 acres but only 80 workable with a 20-acre bush? So there are some variables there. But
what's the most expensive farmland that you've heard selling? What was the price for per acre?
Well, I did hear, and this would be, again, probably the best land around. Sandy loam, maybe well tiled, close to water for irrigation.
Yep.
I have heard stuff in the 20 low 20s. I think I heard one was 24,000 or 5,000. I mean, there's so many variables, because if you have, let's say you have a 50-acre piece, in between two guys that are aggressive guys, well, that piece is obviously going to go for more money, because you've got
you're farming right next door.
Exactly. Versus if you've got a piece that there's no, it's not next door to someone else that's aggressively farming. But I've heard in the low to mid 20s.
Wow.
It is. You're right. Wow is correct.
That's crazy. But hey, good for the farmer who wants to sell. Here's a tough question for Pete. This is the text message. Who is his favorite sibling?
I'm not even going there. I have no siblings.
Another text question. By the way, if you're just listening to us right now, we're talking to Pete Allaer from Riverside Realty. If you got a question you want to text to us, 437-9991 is our text line here, and you can text that question, or you can call in at 519-627-0991. Here's a question for you. How long do you see the market staying hot? I'm hearing prices are going to start dropping significantly. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there seems to be two schools of thought there. If we think about maybe why the market is doing what it's doing first, and I think about this a lot. So obviously it's supply and demand right at this moment. We have, we don't have much supply. We have huge demand. Then you look at, well, where is the demand coming from? Or why do we have so much demand? And we've talked about this a few times. Like 50% of what we're selling is out-of-town people.
Right.
So the question would be, is the demand from out of town going to drop? Right. So is that demand? Are those 50% going to stop coming? And if we look at the cross section of the people, I'm just not so sure that's going to happen yet, because it's people that are coming from a higher market,
right,
that are, either no longer need to live in that market, either they're retired or they're working from home, or there's a reason they don't need to live in that higher market. They're selling, and then they're migrating west. It's not all like Toronto straight to Wallaceburg or Chatham-Kent. It's more Toronto to the Kitchener, Waterloo, those areas, London, Cambridge, Hamilton, and then those people are coming here. So what I look for really in to try to predict what our market's going to do is I look as far as the GTA and say, okay, what's happening there? Is there still demand in the GTA? The wave will, if the demand stops there, the wave will eventually come here, but we're still cheaper than anywhere else.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think you're still going to see Toronto moving away, even if the price starts to drop in Toronto. People aren't necessarily selling in Toronto because the price is so good. They're selling in Toronto because they don't have to be in Toronto. They want to go somewhere else. And still, I mean, they're going to be able to sell their property in Toronto for $1.2 million and then come down here and buy a nice place down here for $300,000-$400,000.
Yes.
And work from home, still work for the same company. I think we're going to stay there for a while. You called it back in March and April when we were doing the show, and you said, what's going to happen with the market now with COVID? And I think it's going to do okay. I think that people are going to buy properties in areas where there's space, where they can be in a Chatham-Kent area and they don't have to be on top of one another because of COVID, and get a good value. And it's still going on.
Yeah, the one thing I was gonna talk about. We're at the end of January. I think this is probably one of the busiest Januaries on record.
Huh.
Like I think I talked about this last week. How it's just been like you'd swear it's May.
Yeah,
June,
you're supposed to be taking a break in January, right?
Normally
you're supposed to be on a Caribbean vacation somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's been ended by Trudeau.
Yeah,
so.
no, we're not allowed to go anywhere.
No, probably a good call, really, to stop those traveling.
I can canoe to Sarnia, maybe.
That's about it. Stay local.
Oh no, I can't even do that though. The river has ice in it now.
We're talking to Pete Allaer from Riverside Realty in our studios today. If you've got a question for Pete and want to text it to us, you can do so at 519-437-9991 is our text line, or you can call it in at 519-627-0991. Why don't we take a break here, and then we'll answer some more questions. And you want to talk about do you have some listings today to talk about?
Yeah, we got a couple there, yeah.
All right, we'll talk about some of those listings and maybe some other info for those that are looking at buying a house and the process that's going through right now. So since we are broadcasting live from your hometown, we thought we'd play some Bruce Springsteen for you now, and my hometown on 99.1 FM. Let's say I live in Wallaceburg and I have to move, and I'm moving to a place that's 200-300 kilometers away. What would you suggest to that person who is looking at buying a house in another market? Should they come to you, or should they look at that market? What would you say to that?
Well, my honest opinion and advice to people like that is, go to whoever, go to your local realtor that you feel comfortable with. Let them know what you're doing. And then we have access quite often to lots of other realtors from out of town. So what I normally do is I will refer that person to someone who I might have worked with the other way in the past, and I hook them up with someone who I trust and who I know, will look after them, knows the market. I'm a firm believer of, use a realtor that knows the market wherever you're buying. Right. Because, let's say it's in Kitchener. Well, I've driven through Kitchener, but I don't know anything about Kitchener. Like, I can't give a person
Sure, if
good
they're looking
advice.
at buying a property there where schools are located, what's good and bad about this neighborhood, but that's why you would have somebody who's from Kitchener. So it's a great answer. So go to your local realtor, and then they'll refer you to someone that they know, trust, who knows the market.
Yeah, that we've worked with, someone we know that is trustworthy and will do a good job. I do that quite often. And now, we obviously don't have that many people moving that direction, but I do. For Windsor, for example, I've had a few of them in Windsor that people are going to Windsor, and I've got a person that I know in Windsor that's, does a good job, and, and I've sent people to my buddy Manny over there who's an honest guy and will do a good job, and again, I don't know Windsor. So you might as well deal with someone who knows the area.
Yeah. Another question here on the text line here. Any rumblings about new housing, condos, apartment buildings coming to Wallaceburg, which is badly needed, particularly for seniors?
Well, what I will say is that, honestly, I'm diligently working on trying to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. If you listen to a show we did back, 2 or 3 months ago with the mayor.
Toured
around Wallaceburg and areas, showing him where there would be good possibilities for expansion or either duplexes or what do you call them?
Semis, townhouses, they call them, where there's 4 in a row or I mean, unfortunately, we do have land around Wallaceburg that could be developed. The fact that I guess the owners of that land are not aggressive and or really not interested in maybe developing it. Maybe they're at an age where
I think is a travesty, by the way. I think that there should be a rule. There's got to be something in place. If you're going to hold on to land and not do anything with it for more than 3-4 years, something should happen. There should be a push to make you want to do something with it instead of just holding on to it, because it doesn't help anyone.
Well, exactly. That's right. So, I mean, there is definitely land out there, we could do that. I think the person asking the question is 100% correct that there's a
huge
housing need. Mm-hmm. I get it all the time. I mean, I get people that say to me, I don't want to leave Wallaceburg. I'd like to downsize into a semi or a those 4-unit buildings you see everywhere, or a smaller house. All I can say is that, I'm diligently working on it. I'm in touch with the municipality. I probably spend 20% of my time just on that subject, because I agree, there's a huge need.
Right.
And will it come? I'm really hoping that we are getting somewhere. But yeah, we got to shake loose some of this land that is just sitting,
right?
And not. It's ready to go. It's just a matter and there's people out there that will develop it. I mean, that's the other thing. It'd be different if I have this land. There's
nobody wants
to buy any. I mean, that's different. But right now, we're ready. Like, we need it.
Right.
And if those people are listening, call me, because I have developers that will buy your land and develop it. And we need it here in Wallaceburg. We're the only town in Chatham-Kent that is not building.
Drives me crazy.
It does. Me too.
You're in the real estate business. I'm just a radio guy. Let me just check the text line here to make sure we don't have any more questions there for you. Then maybe we can get to some listings here. What you want to talk about? Any of the listings that you have in the area?
Yeah, sure. So we have a couple of listings. I think there's a couple new ones here. We have a nice little 1-floor over on Lorne, 2-bedroom. Could be a starter home. 119 Lorne in town here. We've got a new listing over in Dresden at 237 Trera Street in Dresden. We also have another one here in town, 766 Wellington, right by Tom and Al's Furniture there. We have one out on Brigden Road, 464 Brigden Road, if you want to move to the country. So I think that's about the new list. Riversite.com, of course, will show you all the latest listings and pictures and all the rest. So
this is an interesting question on the text line here. Only because it's in my neighborhood, and it's funny. I want to know about it kind of too. What do you know about that piece of land that I see and by the Snai, where the fork is of the Snai and the Johnson by Shiloh Park? That's a nice piece of property that I think should be developed.
Right, like you're talking
right in my neighborhood, right
Shiloh Park itself.
Well, just down. So if you know that area, there's where I live. There's 6 houses in there, and then at the end of the street, there's that blank area of Shiloh Park. But there's like an old beaten up house that's right there. It's a beautiful property, and then that property is probably a good acre, and then Shiloh Park.
Oh, okay.
So it's right at the corner of the fork. I mean, they would look right down the Johnson, and you're on the Snai. It's a beautiful piece of property.
So it would be going past your house.
Past my house.
Like continuing on to the dead end?
Correct.
Right.
And then where the dead end is, that land, there's tons of land
there.
Well,
I'm sure that whole parcel is all one parcel.
It's all part of the Shiloh Park
belonging to Shiloh Park. Not saying that, it couldn't be severed off or something, but again, there's another example, I guess, is of the owner is happy with what's happening there, maybe.
And I get that too. I mean, if he just wants that land, that it's part of his parcel, it's a lot of work to make it happen. Maybe doesn't want a house beside there.
Yes.
I get that's a different situation than what we're talking about with these other properties in town that need to be developed for housing or apartments and that.
Another situation that we're in, and this is getting a little political, but it's the conservation authorities. I mean, Wallaceburg is completely blanketed now with the St. Clair Conservation Authority, and there are a few little fill-in areas in town, and I've worked on those, and honestly, it's like you don't get anywhere. It's like it seems like the only answer they have is no. And when you try to speak about, well, this is an infill lot, and someone would just build a house, on this street. There's houses all around it. The hoops that you have to jump through are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the problem you have is, at some point people just get frustrated and say, "Oh, forget it," right? Like, forget it, and they walk away. And then you have a piece of land sitting there, nothing happening with it. I'm working on a couple other pieces in town that were different use at one time, and now the use really should be residential. I just feel like there needs to be an easier way of getting from, this used to be, a farm machinery dealership, let's say, that at one time wasn't in the middle of town, but now it's a parcel that is in the middle of town. How can we somehow go to the common sense side and say, all right, this should be this. Like, what do we need to do to get it to this, right? There's just so many hoops to jump through, and the conservation authorities. I mean, I was talking to a developer from London, and he said the same thing. He said, if your area is underneath the jurisdiction of the conservation authority, he said, good luck, because he said the same thing. He said it's just very difficult to get anything.
So that's
done.
something that needs to be handled by either an MP, MPP. I guess conservation be MP, right?
I think they're provincial.
Okay, so MPP. It's not to do with your councillor or your mayor. It's
although we do have, I believe we have two councillors that are on the authority.
Right.
It comes down to me to. I understand, like, don't get me wrong. I understand we have to follow rules.
Sure.
And some of the rules they have are great. But I just think it's hard to make a blanket rule. And one of their rules is the height that you now have to build at. That's one of their biggest rules. And I get that for a new subdivision but when you're doing an infill lot and you have to put in a new house and they're telling you, okay, this is the level of the floor of your new house. Well, when you compare it to the houses around it, I mean, the floor of the house is like halfway up the top of the first window of the house beside it.
Yeah.
And it becomes almost impossible to do because, I mean,
and honestly, as a neighbor, I don't know if I want to see that either. If somebody's going to come in and their house has to be that high up and I got to look at their foundation.
And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be built higher than maybe the older houses, but it's an infill lot. So there has to be, to me, whenever you're dealing with this stuff, there has to be some common sense and say, okay, I get it why it shouldn't be built here. Maybe we can build it somewhere in between, so it does kind of fit in the neighborhood. And it's a 50-foot lot. And then, of course, if you build the house way up here and your neighbor's way down here, well, now you got to build dirt up.
Right.
So now what? So all your water runs onto your there's some things in there that I get what they're doing. I understand the rules. If you've got a brand new subdivision, yeah, for sure. This is where you need to build. Right. This is what you should do. Equal. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But when you're doing infill lots, maybe they need to look at, saying, all right, infill lots, we can, this is kind of.
I've written it down for Monty McNaughton the next time we talk
Absolutely.
to him. Yeah, I'll ask
I think
him.
it's important.
See what he says. All right. Well, I guess that wraps it up. Good questions today on the All About Real Estate show. Thanks a lot for your text messages and your phone calls here in the studio. We'll get Pete Allaer back with us again next week. It's on the same Saturday, of course, if you want to track them down. Riversite.com, right?
Yeah, Riversite.com is our website. And also, if anyone, they can find my cell number on our website, and all along, if I enjoy answering questions because I want to do this show to be informative to the public, and if anyone has questions for me, even on our Facebook page, they can message us on a question and I can deal with it the following Saturday, or if they just want to text me a message or just call me and ask me a message on my cell phone, just give me a call and I'm happy to deal with any kind of questions.
All right. That's the show for this week. Pete, thanks a lot for coming in as always.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
See you next week. Same time, same place here.